It is the 10th of December. Brrr, wrap up warm. The snowman with a scarf. So, a lot of people dislike Tarantino now, and I've been sitting on a particular grievance for a while, although there are indeed many reasons to dislike him. He has a foot fetish, which is the #1 fetish people like to make fun of, and is pretty creepy that actresses who he works with are expected to accommodate this. He has defended noted paedophile Roman Polanski, like that's just a thing he's unambiguously done. Basically, he thinks that 13-year-olds can consent to sex with old men.
He didn't rape a 13-year-old, it was statutory rape.
Yeah,
all right.
Well,
that's not quite the same thing. All right?
on.
Enough said.
It's not statutory rape. You know, he had sex with a minor. All right, that's not rape.
It's almost like you think statutory rape is this legal technicality that for most people doesn't actually matter, when actually, for most people, it very much does matter. Especially if we're talking 13 years old, that's barely post-pubescent. He's a Zionist. Gross. He's also weird and pretentious, like he clearly thinks of himself as this visionary artistic director, when I don't actually think he's anybody's favourite. I'm going to talk about the quality of his art later on, but the main issue with regards to him being an unlikable person is just how up himself he is. But obviously that gets at the latest grievance against him, which is that he has called many other people in the film industry untalented, and that just blatantly lacks decorum. Lots of people have complained about that, but can I just say controversially, I actually like Christian and Guru Murphy, and therefore I think that Tarantino came across really unlikable in his interview with him. Like, Christian was asking some pretty basic, obvious questions, and Tarantino was responding by acting like a crazy person.
Let me ask you about violence. I mean, you said, everyone knows you make violent movies, you like violent movies. Mm-hmm. Why do you like making violent movies? But why are you so sure that there's no link between enjoying movie violence and enjoying real violence?
I'm going to tell you why I'm so sure. Do not ask me a question like that. I'm not biting. I refuse your question.
Why?
Because I refuse your question. I'm not your slave and you're not my master. You can't make me dance to your tune. I'm not a monkey.
I can't make you answer anything. I'm asking you interesting questions.
And I'm saying I refuse.
Okay. No, it's my job to try and ask you to.
And I'm shutting your butt down.
And that's entirely your
This is a commercial
right.
from my movie.
No, I know, but it's my job to try and explore some serious themes as well.
My real controversial take is that I dislike Robert Downey Jr. for the same reason. Again, I think Christian was asking pretty reasonable questions about the things that RDJ has said and done. So, to act like some pathetic victim and run away when you're being held to account, that's the kind of thing that makes me dislike people. But yeah, most people seem to think that journalists owe it to celebrities to handle them with kitty gloves and not ask any serious probing questions. So that dislike of Tarantino is very specific to me. And I guess the moment that really made me hate Tarantino is also specific to me. I certainly don't hear that many other people complaining about it. Basically, it's that moment in The Hateful Eight where Tarantino decided to have an antique guitar worth $100,000 on set borrowed from a museum. If you don't know the story, the plan was to have Jennifer Jason Leigh playing the guitar and then Kurt Russell was supposed to pick it up and smash it.
Give me that guitar. Music time's over.
But what was supposed to happen is they were supposed to cut and switch out the antique guitar with a replacement. But they didn't cut, and Russell didn't know it was an actual antique, so he smashed it. Now, apparently this wasn't intentional. Apparently it was all one big misunderstanding, but I still think it was a dick move, and actually I do think it was intentional. The best case scenario is that this was careless, because something going wrong was incredibly predictable. Why even use an antique guitar in the first place? Now that means you just have to make an otherwise unnecessary cut, and you have to go to the effort of creating an exact replica of that antique. Instead, she could have just been playing a regular guitar, he could have picked it up and smashed it all in one shot. And this makes me think that Tarantino's plan never was to cut. He intentionally chose to have that antique guitar on set. He made sure that Kurt Russell didn't know it was an antique guitar. What a dick. And why? Well, maybe just to cause a buzz. Sometimes these crazy production shenanigans can bring attention to a film. But I think more offensively, the answer is probably just that Tarantino has such a massive ego that he thinks smashing a priceless antique just for the sake of a shot in one of his movies is a reasonable trade-off. But here's the thing that makes me really hate Tarantino. If this is the case, I think it's quite likely that he did this because he wanted to get a more extreme reaction from Jason Lee. Because the reaction we see from her in the film is the reaction of the actress, Jason Lee, breaking character to react to the realization that an antique guitar has just been smashed on the set of a movie.
Time's over.
So what really annoys me is that not only did Tarantino carelessly or perhaps intentionally destroy a priceless antique, not only did he probably do this just for his own ego, but in doing this, he makes the movie worse. Because Jason Lee breaks character here. Like, she really obviously breaks character. Even before I knew about this whole story and was just watching the movie for the first time, I remember being really confused about why the character reacted in this totally unnatural way. Like, you can literally see in the first few seconds of the next shot that her character is ordinarily very subdued, kind of depressed, and that's nothing like how she reacts to the smashing.
Turn around.
We literally just see an actress playing a character, then stop playing that character, and then jump right back into playing her again. If you're going to do this kind of nonsense, at least have it be in service of making a better movie, not making the movie in fact worse. And that's why I've hated Tarantino ever since I found out about this story. Because if you are a bad person and a bad filmmaker, indeed you being a bad person leads you to make decisions that make your movies worse, there's not really anything to like about you as a director. I will say my broad opinion on Tarantino is that I think he is a fine director, like he's just okay. I remember this one Nerdwriter video talking about how Tarantino plans to only make 10 movies, and apparently this is so that he can make sure every single one of his movies are hits, and none of them stand out as being the one that's kind of bad or forgettable. But, Death Proof, right? I mean, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad movie, but it certainly is easily the most forgettable of his movies, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. So the ship has already sailed on Tarantino having this really strong filmography where every single film is in equally strong contention to be considered his best. Personally, I'd say only his first 3 movies are really good: Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and Jackie Brown. Indeed, a strong argument could be made that his first film ever was his very best. Reservoir Dogs is really well constructed in terms of plot and character. The valid criticism of Tarantino's later filmography is that it's always the same trick. Present a historic tragedy and have the film end with an over-the-top, violent alternative history where the historic villain is destroyed. Slavery, but the movie ends with all the slave owners being pumped full of lead and then blown up. Nazi Germany, but the movie ends with all the Nazis being pumped full of lead and then blown up. The Tate murders, but the movie ends with the Manson family being pumped full of lead and then blown up. Actually, I've only seen the last film once. I don't really remember exactly how they're killed, but probably something like that. And that's sort of the point, isn't it, though? I haven't seen these films more than once because they're not really that good. They're not worth watching. What is their unique artistic merit that I'm supposed to be getting out of them? Sure, they're on a base level entertaining, and I would consider them on balance to be good movies, but that doesn't make them great. Daddy's Home 2 is a good movie. It's just not clear to me what I'm supposed to actually be getting out of them as movies. And I actually think Tarantino isn't going to have much lasting impact on the filmmaking landscape because there's not much in his movies worth imitating in terms of artistic voice. I mean, that's the thing, right? What actually is the message of any of his movies? Am I missing it? Anyway, speaking of unscripted moments ruining Tarantino films, I need to send out one final stray bullet here. I've never liked that scene in Django Unchained where DiCaprio smashes his fist on a broken piece of glass and then proceeds to act through the scene anyway, and then rubs blood all over his co-star's face. People point to this as an example of him being a fantastic actor because he kept acting acting despite the injury, and that look of shock on her face is completely authentic. Now, I have a few issues. Firstly, I don't know, to me, rubbing bodily fluids on someone's face without their prior consent is a bit of a no-no. But I guess maybe if you know you're signing up to Tarantino, there's gonna be blood involved. I'm just imagining if somebody rubbed blood on my face out of nowhere, that would freak me out and I wouldn't appreciate it. More to the point, if he smashed his hand into broken glass, isn't there a risk there are some shards of glass on his hand, and therefore when he then rubs his hand on her face, he's risking injuring her? But again, my main issue with what happens here is that it makes the movie worse. It takes away from the quality of the film because it's a totally out of left field thing to happen.
This here is too steep.
To me, this feels like something an actor might do while they're acting, injure themselves and think, I can use this for my performance. But this doesn't seem like a thing that DiCaprio's character would actually do. It would make more sense if, presumably like it was in the original script, he didn't cut his hand open at all. If DiCaprio did just accidentally do it, well, they should have worked that into the film in a way that made it seem more intentional. Like, I don't know, maybe include an insert shot of the glass being smashed so we could see that's what happened. Because again, when I first saw this movie, I was confused by that scene. Where did this blood come from? Why is this happening? Why is this character doing this? Obviously, when I found out that Leo actually hurt his hand during filming the scene, I just thought to myself, that explains why this completely random, pointless thing happens in the movie out of nowhere that totally broke my immersion, because it wasn't actually part of the story. It was entirely about something that happened in the filmmaking process. I'd say in the case of actually good improvisation, when you find out it is improvisation, you should be thinking, oh wow, that's awesome that this actor was able to take this real thing that happened and use it to make the film feel more real. And that's not what I was thinking during that scene, and it's definitely not what I was thinking when I found out it was improvised based on a random thing that happened during the shoot. This just feels like a case of people valuing acting as a self-centered masturbatory performance rather than as a collaborative tool to create something much greater. All of this makes me appreciate the Aragorn helmet kick in Lord of the Rings even more.
So he boots this helmet. And then he let out this scream. I thought, wow, this is strong. I mean, this is like Aragorn is like just in total grief at what's just happened to Merry and Pippin. This is really cool. And he didn't say anything to us, but we found out that Viggo had actually broken 2 toes with that last kick.
As you might already know, Viggo Mortensen broke his toe while filming that scene, but he was able to channel that physical pain and act it out as emotional pain upon realizing that 2 members of his party have apparently been killed. If DiCaprio had been playing Aragorn, I guess he would have just stubbed his toe in a random scene and proceeded to wipe his feet all over everyone's face. Especially if Tarantino was directing it. One final grievance against this whole improvising thing, I keep seeing the scene going around from that Lemony Snicket movie starring Jim Carrey, which everyone says is an example of improvising.
Our parents just died.
Oh yes, of course. How very, very awful. Wait, let me do that one more time. Give me the line again. Quickly, while it's fresh in my mind.
Our parents just died?
Oh, yes.
He's not improvising, that was in fact in the script. I'm 99% sure it's also in the novel, because Count Olaf is a narcissistic psychopath who views all performance of emotion to be inherently inauthentic and manipulative. Also, you know, the movie's a comedy, so they wrote in jokes. People in the comments like, wow, it's so impressive that the child actor was able to pick up what Jim Carrey was doing and play along with the improvisation. Yeah, you're right, that would be really impressive, but That's not what happened. Like, for that to make sense, you'd have to be assuming that Jim Carrey's first initial reaction was his genuine attempt at sincerity. I don't know, it seems like people have this idea that improvised off-the-cuff reactions are always much better than scripted ones, but I'd say usually what makes it into a movie is likely to have been scripted, because what was written in the script was with a specific mind to how best to advance the story and characters. And that's why I would say that including the lead actress blatantly breaking character in what will ultimately be 1/10 of your life's work as a filmmaker makes you a bad filmmaker. And allowing an antique to be smashed for the sole reason of getting that reaction that ultimately makes your movie worse, that makes you a bad person.
Music time's over.